Hello. Oh, it's so amazing to see you. I'm so excited to have you here
It's
today.
terrific.
Welcome.
How
Well, I'm
exciting.
yes, this is my hero right here, Dr. Dan Tomasulo. I'm excited to introduce him. He is an academic director of Columbia University's Spirituality Mind Body Institute and an assistant instructor to the founder of the Positive Psychology School, Martin Seligman, at the University of Pennsylvania's Mastered in Applied Positive Psychology program, the MAP program. He's a licensed clinical psychologist with over 25 years as an experienced clinician, and he's the creator of the interactive behavioral therapy. Very interesting, the most widely used form of group therapy for people with intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. I'm so excited to have him here. He's here to talk about my favorite subject, which is hope. He has a new book, best-selling book, Learned Hopefulness, which is very exciting. The power of positivity to overcome depression, increase motivation, and build unshakable resilience. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Tomasulo here today to talk about healing through the power of hope. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Catherine. It's a real treat to be here, and I'm going to show my slides. So if we can get those up, I want to begin with talking about what was going on before COVID-19. If we're going to talk about hope, we want to see really what's happened in the last year, right? So before uh, COVID. These were the statistics, right? 80% of people with depression relapse, 40% of Americans are lonely. Well, you could read the list. One of the things that we know is that things were already deteriorating. See, I think I'd like to start off with something really depressing early on so that we can move through that later on. But these numbers have all gone up. They have all gone up. Depression rates, anxiety rates, loneliness, all have gotten worse with COVID. So, as we start coming to this pivot point, it's important to know a little bit about what is needed. And we can talk about a variety of different things. If it's a chemical imbalance, if it's this, if it's that. But at the end of the day, I think we all intuitively understand what's going on. We're losing hope and our sense of meaning. And we're losing it at a rate that is faster than we've ever experienced in our lifetime. So, what can be done with that? What is it that we can do in order to boost hope and to give us a sense that maybe we can get some control back in our lives? So, for this, I want to turn to William James. My experience is what I agree to attend to because at the core of understanding hope is to recognize that you have a choice in how you use your perception, right? And if you take a look at this image, if you were to let your eyes glance all the way to the far right of the image, what you would notice is that it looks like a rabbit. But if you were to let your eyes glance all the way over to the left side of that image, you would notice that it looks like a duck. So now we have something really very, very interesting. We have one image, but if you look at it in different ways and focus your attention in different ways, all of a sudden we see something very different. This is at the core of understanding how to use hope as a way to transform and transition your thinking and feeling. The second way is to start thinking about challenging our perceptions, that we often make decisions and reactions based on how we perceive things, but they require a deeper look, as these images will explain. This is one of my favorite ones, right? And I'll let this one run twice because it gives us the sense that challenging our perception becomes another way to start giving a new life, a new perspective, an opportunity to grow. When we look at something from one angle, we'll see it in a particular way. But if we can open up our awareness and challenge that one way of seeing it, the incipient moment of understanding how we're going to respond changes. I'm in the Positive Psychologists Union, so I'm required to show this for 30 seconds during every presentation. No, actually, that's not true. But if I were to ask the questions that go along with this, I would have already limited your thinking to believing that there's only two possible answers, when the best answer is that this glass is completely full, half with water, half with air. Ultimately, what are we doing? We're trying to set it up so that your perception is able to look at both ways. If something is happening that's not good, we can see that, but can we start to stretch our thinking to begin looking at it in another dimension? For this, we want to reach back into the humanistic psychology movement, to Abraham Maslow, right? And that means that we need to start challenging our awareness of ourselves. Do we see ourselves as a victim? Do we see ourselves as a change agent? Do we see challenges or opportunities versus something that we don't have control over? And here's where the research on hope becomes more important. This might seem very simplistic, that a shift in one arena, like our behaviors, would have an impact on our thoughts and our emotions, and vice versa, right? With emotions impacting our behaviors, our thoughts impacting emotions and behaviors as well. Well, now let's add something that drives all of this. It's our belief system. Our beliefs tint all of these things. So when we start to look at the science of hope, we're really trying to unearth the belief systems and how do we structure them? How do we get to them? Right? So in putting together the research on learned hopefulness, we're learning how to optimize the belief that we can influence the future. Hope is a very different kind of thing from optimism and faith. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But we're trying to optimize the belief that we can influence the future. When putting this work together on learned hopefulness, I got to survey a very wide range of material. And I was kind of stunned because if you read the research on hope in medicine, and then the research on hope in business, and the research on hope in social psychology, and the research on hope in psychotherapy, it's as if the researchers didn't really read one another's work. So it's a little bit like the parable of the three blind men who are holding on to the elephant. You know, one grabs the tail and says the whole thing looks like a rope. Another one grabs the ear and says it looks like a fan. Another one grabs the leg and says this whole thing looks like a tree. And in the beginning, I was trying to find who had the best theory. And then I realized, wait a minute. What if all the research were correct, but they just had a piece of it? What would hope look like? And what emerged were 5 myths about hope that really shattered my assumption about how hope worked, and I want to share them with you now. The first is that hope is a purely positive emotion. Well, I've come to find out that it is not. Hope is the only positive emotion that requires negativity or uncertainty to be activated. Just to think about that for a second. Very different than gratitude, very different than awe. Hope requires negativity or uncertainty in order to be stimulated. In other words, if you weren't uncertain or you weren't negative about something, there would be no need for hope, right? So we need that. And right now, as we're coming through COVID, we have those raw materials aplenty. The second thing is myth 2, right? Hope influences our belief system. Well, what I found out is that it's the other way around. Hope is influenced by our beliefs. I want you to just think with me for a second about the placebo effect and the nocebo effect, right? Think about it. Every drug in the world is only released for market when it can beat the placebo effect, what we believe might be happening to us. So our beliefs are incredibly powerful. The drug industry is based on being able to beat that. And by the way, the research shows that in most cases, the drugs can't do that because our beliefs are so strong. The second thing is the nocebo effect. And if you've ever taken a new medicine, we're given a new medicine for anything, and you Googled it and you looked at the side effects, and then started to notice that you're starting to have all of those side effects. That's an example of the nocebo effect. So our belief system is really powerful in how it influences our way of thinking about hope. Myth number 3, hope is the same as faith. Not so. Hope is when we feel we can positively impact our future. In other words, we have a degree of control over it. And faith is when we have surrendered to something greater, right? I was invited to speak at St. Patrick's Cathedral, if you can imagine, when the book came out. And in preparing for that, because they wanted me to talk about the difference between hope and faith. And I found this quote, so I want to share it with you because I found it a delightful way of blending the two. They are distinctly different, but when we blend them together, hope is faith holding out its hand in the dark. It's when we believe that we can reach for something and we have some control in that reach that we have hope. Myth number 4, hope is regulated by circumstance. Now, what does that mean, right? It means that the circumstance is defining hope. Well, that's not the case. Hope is regulated by calibration. Let me give you an example. If I had planned to take a vacation, and then because of COVID, those vacation plans were canceled, right? What I was expecting, right? The circumstance is dictating how much hope I have. Well, that was the myth. What really happens is calibration will determine how much hope we have. If you can bring a far off goal closer to you, if you can say, all right, I can't go on a cruise or I can't take an airplane someplace, but what I can do is drive to a state park and have some free time there. You calibrate your goal. You bring it closer and closer to what is possible. The moment you do that, the moment you calibrate, your belief system gets activated because you know you can control this. The other one you couldn't control, the calibration allows you to set a goal that is controllable. Myth number 5, you either have hope or you don't. Well, that's not true. What we found out is that hope can be activated, regulated, and facilitated by positivity. It allows us to have a bi-directional reaction, meaning if I can cultivate positive feelings inside of me, that will initiate, that will start to facilitate and activate hope. And then if I go out into the world with that positive feeling and something good happens out there, that feeds that positive emotion, which then gives me more hope. And this feedback loop, this bi-directional feedback loop of something inside of me affecting what's outside and something outside of me affecting what's inside begins. So let's take a look at that. If we're going to look at positive emotions as activators, just to understand a little bit from evolutionary psychology, right? We all have a negativity bias that restricts us in terms of our perception, right? Because if the tiger is coming, we don't wonder how good our hair looks. We worry about getting away from it. So negative emotions restrict us, but positive emotions help to build resources. So more than just feeling good, we start making connections with others and building those resources outside. I've likened this to pebbles and feathers, that negative thoughts are like pebbles. They're stronger typically than positive thoughts. But no one great big good thing is going to change your life. We don't get massive feathers that balance everything out. It tends to be a little bit more like this, that we need a lot of little feathers in order to make this shift. Can the feathers outweigh the pebbles? Absolutely. But you need a lot of them, which means cultivating positivity on a regular basis, small doses of it, like little bits of nutrition, emotional nutrition, that's what's going to change us. Not one, it'd be like saying one great big good meal is going to cure you, right? No, it's how you eat on a regular basis. Same thing with positive emotions. With negative emotions, they pull us down, right? And we ruminate with it, and that keeps us pretty well stuck. And so the idea is that one negative thought isn't going to hurt us, but it's when we allow them to continue. And so a great big intervention that you can do to help your positivity is to recognize you don't want the avalanche to start. You don't want to have a negative thought grow into a ruminated negative thought, because that's what'll pull us down. In positive emotions, what we're trying to do here is get ourselves to move up by shifting our perspective towards hope. And a way to do that, if you're having a downward spiral, is to just begin with a statement. There's another way to look at this. And then follow that up with the question, what can I do to make change happen? These two things are like your left and right hook in terms of dealing with a ruminating negative thought, right? There is another way to look at this, a declarative statement. And what can I do to make change happen? Finally, as we're coming to the end of this, I'd like to just share that in putting this research together and learning about the myths, I also found out that there are high hope people and low hope people, and that they move into the world with very different decisions. They're making decisions that are very, very different. One of the first things I'll know about people who have high hope is that they always move toward the conflict. They don't avoid it. They don't move away from it. They move toward it. And they move toward it by making these 7 decisions. On the right-hand side, you'll see what high hope people do. On the left-hand side, decisions that limit hope, or what people with low hope do, right? People with high hope look for possibilities, notice the good, cultivate positivity, use strengths, adjust goals, engage with purpose, and cherish others. This is really important stuff, because these are decisions that you are making all the time. And that's why that sentence, there is another way to look at this, is so important. If you're on the left-hand side and you see things as fixed and unchangeable, that sentence activates the entire process to start questioning if indeed that decision is a good one. So, right now, I want to give you 3 things that science has shown can improve your mood and increase your happiness, particularly during COVID. Number 1 is recalibrate goals. So, if a goal you had is thwarted, is limited, is jammed in some way, then recalibration means that you're able to do this in a different way. You're going to reduce that goal. If you can't do this, that doesn't mean you have to be in despair. You reset that goal. And by the way, a way to reset that is with something I call micro goals. What can you get done in the next 20 minutes is a very different way to feel hope, because there's accomplishment by setting a goal. Can I prepare lunch in 20 minutes? Can I answer these 3 emails? Can I return a call? In other words, keep the goals very, very close to you. That'll help. The second thing is to express gratitude, kindness, and compassion, because these are fresh. They're in the moment. They're things that you can do on a regular basis. And finally, to cherish relationships. So I'm going to end this here and just thank you very, very, very much. And that if you want a copy of these slides and a free first couple of chapters of the book, you can text hopeful to 44222. That's hopeful to 44222. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. I love all of those incredible solutions and your theories and how you're operationalizing hope. And I definitely text. I'm going to text Hopeful, so that's exciting to learn more about it. And I could spend hours with you. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you further and chatting more with you, and definitely getting your book and learning all about your work. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the work you're doing globally on hope. It's so very important.
Thank you for inviting me, Catherine. A pleasure.
Great. All right. Thank you. And on to our next.